Genius psychologist Carl Jung believed the fool to be the key to your unstoppable self. Let me show you 5 principles from the fool's psychology that together free your highest potential. Starting with the only one that opens the gates to this journey. Admitting that you don't have all the answers. Some call it the art of intellectual humility.
I can live with doubt and uncertainty and not knowing. I don't feel frightened by not knowing things, by being lost in the mysterious universe without having any purpose.
Like the fool who steps into the unknown, being cool with the fact that you don't know everything is the first step when becoming whole and unbeatable. But you must be willing to be real. Poke at your ego, try new things, laugh at yourself. Raise your hand and say, I don't know. You must be okay with being the only fool in the room who doesn't know. To transform this principle into gold, I must bring you to ancient Greece, to the temple of the god Apollo at Delphi, one of the most important places in the ancient world. That's because there used to be a very special priestess known as Pythia, an oracle believed to channel Apollo's wisdom. There's a story Plato shares with us about how a friend of the great philosopher Socrates goes to see the Pythia to ask if anyone is wiser than Socrates. The oracle replies that no one is wiser, but when Socrates himself heard about the oracle's answer, it really threw him off. When I heard of this reply, Socrates said, I asked myself, whatever does the god mean? What is this riddle? I am very conscious that I am not wise at all. What then does he mean by saying that I am the wisest? But being the truth-seeking rebel he was, Socrates visited every man he considered much wiser than him. He wanted to prove to the Oracle of Delphi that she was wrong. But when he visited the wisest of them all, he said, I thought that he appeared wise to many people, and especially to himself, but he was not. I then tried to show him that he thought himself wise, but that he was not. As a result, he came to dislike me, and so did many of the bystanders. So I withdrew and thought to myself, I am wiser than this man. It is likely that neither of us knows anything worthwhile, but he thinks he knows something when he does not, whereas when I do not know, neither do I think I know. The oracle calls Socrates the wisest because he knows that he knows nothing. If you do that, according to Carl Jung, you'd be entering a process called individuation, in which you make yourself unstoppable by uniting and transforming all the good, bad, and even full sides of you. Individuation cannot occur without embracing intellectual humility first. That's because learning about your true self is a non-negotiable in individuation. He says, most people confuse self-knowledge with knowledge of their conscious ego personalities. Anyone who has any ego consciousness at all takes it for granted that he knows himself. But the ego knows only its own contents, not the unconscious and its contents. If the fool successfully applies the principles of intellectual humility to his external and internal worlds, he'll be closer to the ultimate transformation. But without the next principle, intellectual humility is like having a key, but not knowing what it opens. So please let me unlock curiosity and play. This principle is a beast at mining information from the unconscious. To demonstrate this principle, the fool wisely chooses not to take life too seriously. Instead, he connects with his very own core and equivalent, the child archetype. To succeed, the fool plays strategically. He follows his intuition, creates without expectations, takes on new roles, and sees the world as a playground for exploration.
I want to get you to try being creative on canvas, just to take your time and sit down and have nothing in mind when you start. Just have a good feeling and be happy and in love with life and your world, and sit down and begin playing. And if you feel good about yourself and the world, it'll show in your painting, and all these little things will happen.
The fool's exploration allows you to uncover new aspects of yourself, aspects that, when harmonized, can make you more creative, wiser, stronger. As a matter of fact, Carl Jung saw playfulness as a genius technique for self-discovery, explaining that
If play expires in itself without creating anything durable and vital, it is only play. But in the other case, it is called creative work. Out of a playful movement of elements whose interrelations are not immediately apparent, patterns arise, which an observant and critical intellect can only evaluate afterwards. The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct, acting from inner necessity.
to properly unfold this principle, we gotta talk about Leonardo da Vinci. His notebooks filled up with observations, questions, and sketches across a variety of arts and sciences. He became obsessed with how every muscle moves to form a human smile. He meticulously studied the flow of water and dissected humans to understand anatomy. Writing backwards became a habit for Da Vinci, and no one really knows why he did it. Maybe for secrecy, maybe for fun. No one knows. I can share that my father, who was a psychonaut, meaning people who explore the mind very deeply, he used to tell me that the reason why you want to practice writing backwards, it's because it activates parts of your brain that allows you to go deeper within your psyche. This is what alchemists believe, and neuroscience is pointing towards the same direction. There is one little thing I should mention. Curiosity in play is infested with mistakes. It's a good thing. The next principle has a solution to this problem, and Confucius has the first clue. In ancient China, during one of the country's most fucked up times, someone asked Confucius for guidance. They wanted to know what he considered to be the top qualities in a person, and he said, put prime value on loyalty and trustworthiness. Have no friends who are not your equals, and if you make mistakes, don't be afraid to correct them. Making mistakes is an ordinary act. What you do afterwards is what makes you extraordinary. And if anyone understands how to handle mistakes, that's the great philosopher Epictetus. One day, he was telling an aspiring governor about how uninformed opinions are a bad criterion for taking action. He said, but show me that you have made some inquiry into your opinions and have taken some pains about them. Knowing that the aspiring governor was traveling to Rome to achieve his dream, Epictetus said, you desire something greater and more conspicuous. So, when did you ever make a voyage for the purpose of examining your own opinion and casting them out if you have any that are bad? Whom have you approached for this purpose? What time have you fixed for it? What age? Epictetus reminds us that coming all the way into this journey and leaving without learning from your mistakes, it's like going to Jamaica and not smoking ganja, or reading Nietzsche and ignoring the will to power. Treating your mistakes like a scientist dramatically improves decision making and, of course, prevents repeating the same lame mistake in the future. Pair that with learning from mistakes from others, and you have a beast. You're pretty much building some serious wisdom muscle. If the brave fool can do this, he's ready to take bold and calculated risk.
I had to come, even though I was afraid I might make a fool of myself. In fact, if you really want to know the truth, I had to come exactly because I might make a fool of myself. Now, what am I talking about? Here it is. I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living.
The Fool is a powerful archetype representing courage and new beginnings, but it's about taking smart risks, not reckless gambles. He weighs the pros and cons, checks with his intuition, and takes the risk. Carl Jung wrote, for the hero, fear is a challenge
And a task, because only boldness can deliver from fear. And if the risk is not taken, the meaning of life is somehow violated, and the whole future is condemned to hopeless staleness.
This journey brings us to the principle that makes everything stick together. Without it, none of this matters. Owning your choices completely. Trust me, it is way more complex than it sounds, but let me briefly explain. Carl Jung thought that when you fully take responsibility for a choice and action, you begin the process of individuation. This transformation consists of uniting or integrating all parts of yourself. These parts include conscious and unconscious ones and those perceived as good or bad. And the key here is that all those aspects of yourself are required in individuation. Because in Dr. Jung's perspective, they all have a role to play in transforming you into a whole person. He says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular. However, I must clarify that for Carl Jung, individuation is not about becoming perfect or a higher version of oneself. It's really about becoming whole, about embracing each and every one of the aspects that make you. Every aspect of this true self is adjusted to a healthy volume level and creatively harmonized or incorporated into life. The fool becomes the sage. Here's a video YouTube really thinks you're gonna love. I really hope you do.